Hey guys, in this video we're going to cover how to use the HALion Sonic SE synthesizer in Cubase 12. This is the main instrument and keyboard synthesizer that's included with this program. The versions that are available are different based on whether you're using Cubase Pro, Artist, Elements, or AI and LE, with the Pro version having the most options and being the one that we'll cover in this video. To get started, we'll create an instrument track with the project view with the HALion Sonic SE plugin selected as the instrument. If you're using a MIDI controller with this instrument, make sure to connect it to the computer, set it as the input for the instrument track, and arm the track for recording. Then all the notes on the keyboard will trigger the synth and we'll hear it on our main outputs. When we launch this plugin, this is what we'll see. It's basically a blank plugin with nothing loaded, so there's no default program to play sound. We can see on the left there's a bank of options labeled 1 to 16. These represent the individual programs that can be loaded in a single plugin at once. Each of them has a mute, solo, and drop-down to select the program. We can also select the program from the presets at the top, as well as with the big load screen in the middle. This load panel gives us options to search for our preferred type of instrument by category, subcategory, style, character, and name with the search bar below. Then we can just load it into the program. I've selected the steel guitar and pad sound. By default, Cubase is only going to play everything through channel 1 of the MIDI input to our plugin. That means that the way it's set up right now, only the first program in that list on the left is going to play. Once we select it, we'll get a bunch of knobs at the bottom that are all quick controls to adjust the sound of the program. Unfortunately, we can't go through all these controls because they're going to be different for pretty much every instrument that you're going to select. To hear the sounds we're creating, we can play a MIDI track from the project, press the key buttons on the screen with the mouse, or use a MIDI controller connected to this MIDI track to trigger the notes. Moving on to the Edit tab, this gives us a few more controls. At the top we have octave, coarse, and fine pitch controls, and a mono and polyphony mode. The octave will just adjust the notes that the synth plays by 1 octave up or down, and the coarse knob adjusts the notes by 1 or more semitones. The fine knob adjusts the pitch between notes. Pitch bend controls how much the pitch bend control on the MIDI controller changes the pitch, and the default here is 2 semitones up or down. The mono mode makes it monophonic so that only one note can be played at once. Polyphony mode makes it so that multiple simultaneous notes can be played. The filter section has a cutoff, resonance, attack, and release controls. Cutoff controls the cutoff frequency, resonance controls the emphasis of the cutoff frequency, attack and release adjust the timing of the filter. Amplifier controls the level and panning of the layer of this synthesizer, and this section also has attack and release controls. The reason I picked out the steel guitar and pad instrument earlier is because this is one of the instruments with the HALion Sonic SE plugin that has multiple layers. We can see from the Edit tab that there is L1, L2, and L3 listed along the top, and we can switch between those. Layer 1 is the Strat guitar open position 1, Layer 2 is the SR West Coast guitar, and Layer 3 is the Dense Synth Strength pad. All of these have their own voice, pitch, filter, and amplifier controls that can be adjusted individually. Now let's select a different program to see how 2 of the different synthesizers in Cubase 12 works. If we go back to the load program and select all instruments, we can then switch to either Flux or Trip instrument and then select a program from that subset. Let's start with the Trip instrument and then use the machine arpeggiator under the synth lead. With the program activated using the Trip instrument, we can go to the Edit tab and that will have all the options for this synth. Unlike the previous programs that we used, the Trip and Flux instruments have detailed controls of the sound. At the top of the trip instrument, we have the oscillator, sub-oscillator, modulator, and arpeggiator tabs. The bottom has the filter and amplifier section. On the oscillator page, we have the activation button on the left, the wave type that can be seen as sine, triangle, saw, or square, with the square wave having a waveform parameter that adjusts the height ratio of the waveform. We can listen back to the sound of each of these types of waves using the level to adjust the balance between them. Moving towards the right, we can change the pitch, so it could make one of the waves play a different octave, or adjust the finer pitch. At the end, we can adjust how much of the filter is applied. The next page has the sub-oscillator, ring modulator, and noise generator. The sub-oscillator is a lower frequency that plays one octave below the pitch that's set with the trigger and pitch section. The sub-oscillator has wave shapes and a level control. The ring modulator is used to take the sum and difference of the input frequencies from the two oscillator sources. Noise generator just creates extra noise within our signal. The mod page includes the LFO and vibrato settings. LFO has a frequency, sync with musical timing, pitch, and cutoff controls. The vibrato section includes vibrato frequency, depth, and cutoff. Both the LFO and the vibrato amounts can be controlled with each of the three oscillator wave generators. The last tab at the top is the arpeggiator. The arpeggiator will jump between notes quickly that are selected or repeat a note in potentially its octave for a single note. The top has 4 variations of arpeggiators that can be selected with the switch between them, and they all have a different pattern to them. These patterns will depend on which program is selected. The loop button gets the arpeggiator to keep playing instead of stopping after the phrase plays. The hold will set the arpeggiator to keep playing if we release the note if it's on, or it can be set to gate so that it plays silently when the note is released and picks up from the same position if the note is pressed again. Trigger mode determines whether the arpeggiator activates immediately or with the next beat or measure in the Cubase timeline. With the arpeggiator, it will eventually need to restart the pattern, and the restart mode determines if it will restart the pattern with the next quarter note, or just keep continuing the pattern regardless of if the notes in the pattern changes. The tempo scale sets how quickly the notes play and swing, shifts the note timing. The gate scale adjusts how long the notes are. At 100%, they will play for the tempo length. At 50%, they will play for half that length, and at 200%, they will double and start to overlap. Velocity scale adjusts the note velocity, so setting it to 100% sets it to the normal velocity, above this increases the velocity, and below it decreases the velocity. Last we have octave, which extends the note pattern into an octave above or below. Last, let's cover the filter and amplifier section of the instrument. The filter is used to remove certain frequencies. The filter shape can be set to low pass, where the high frequencies are attenuated, band pass, where the frequencies above and below the filter frequency are attenuated, high pass, where all the low frequencies are attenuated, band reject attenuates a narrow band of frequencies around the cutoff, and an all-pass filter. Cutoff selects the cutoff frequency for the filter, and resonance boosts the frequencies around the cutoff. Then we have a type and amount of distortion, envelope amount to modulate the cutoff frequency, and a tool to adjust the cutoff modulation based on the velocity of the note or the pitch of the note being passed through the filter. The filter envelope section has attack, decay, sustain, and release controls. The amplifier section has basic controls for level, velocity, then attack, decay, sustain, and release for the overall sound. The next instrument is the flux instrument. The flux instrument can be selected from the load screen by choosing the flux instrument at the top and picking a program from the set. We can select a program such as Mercury under Synth and then switch over to the Edit menu. The oscillator pad at the top gives us control of the two wave generators in the synthesizer. Then there's the retrigger mode, which just sets the value of the wave when the note starts. It could be set to free mode, where the synthesizer continually runs in the background and then just restarts when we hit a note, random start position, or fixed position in the phase. Below we have octave, coarse, and fine pitch controls, as well as our level and pan controls. The multi-tab creates multiple simultaneous oscillators with the number controlling how many there are, detuning, pan, and spread controls. The next page is the sub-oscillator, and like the main oscillator, we're getting multiple wave shapes, retrigger mode, level, and panning. To the right, we have the noise generator that chooses the type of noise, volume level of the noise, synchronizing the noise speed with project tempo, panning, follow pitch, which uses pitch and pitch bend tools to change the length of the noise, loop to keep the noise repeating instead of playing once, and speed to determine the speed of the noise, but that also affects the pitch. So if we increase the speed, the pitch increases, or decrease the speed, decreases the pitch. Speed key follow can set the pitch and speed of the noise to increase with the value of the MIDI note. Start adjusts the time in the sample that the noise starts at, with random start setting this to the random value and the knob adjusting how far around the value that start can be. The modulation page provides 16 modulators. Within the synth, a modulator is just a tool to apply a waveform or value of one control to another. We can choose a source such as these LFOs or low frequency oscillators and apply that to a destination at the end, which can be another parameter within the instrument. For the most drastic effect and to show how this works, I'll just apply this to the pitch. Our sources for the modulation include LFO A and B, amp envelope, filter envelope, envelope 3, key follow, note on velocity squared, pitch bend, modulation wheel, aftertouch, arpeggiator controllers, and bus 1 to 8. The modulation destination is what we're affecting, and that can be the pitch, cutoff frequency, resonance, distortion, level, volume, panning, wavetable controls, and more. The voice page gives us control for monophonic versus polyphonic, meaning whether one note or multiple can play at once. Retrigger mode is used in mono mode. In mono mode, if you press a new note when another is held down, that first note will be stopped and the second started. In retrigger mode, releasing the second note will cause the first note to start again, otherwise the sound will just stop. Trigger mode adjusts what happens when a new note is played. Glide allows for bending between sequential notes and a glide time to adjust the time of the bend. At the bottom, we have octave control, pitch key follow to adjust the pitch modulation by MIDI note, and distribution to create different modulations for the different unison voices. The ARP page is for the arpeggiator, and we can get a lot more control of this arpeggiator with the flex instrument than the trip instrument earlier. The arpeggiator is activated with a square beside the page name at the top, and unlike the trip instrument, we have a lot more control over the arpeggiator pattern. First, the arpeggiator has a phrase selection at the bottom where we can select pre-made phrases from a list. Above, we can also manually create our own phrase with different velocities for all the notes and note durations. We can start with 8 notes for the phrase, and to do that, we drag the upside down triangle at the top just past where we want the phrase to end. Then we can click to each of the velocities or set some to 0. We can also drag the side of those bars to lengthen them. If we right-click, we can also reset all the note lengths. At the bottom, there are more advanced controls. On the left, we can loop and sync the pattern. We can also choose the direction of the arpeggiator, the hold mode, trigger mode, and restart mode like in the trip instrument. The bottom of the arpeggiator adjusts the tempo scale, and we have the gate length again here, velocity scale, and octaves. Now let's cover the filter, amplifier, envelope 3, and LFO section at the bottom of the instrument. This is visible when we're on the oscillator, sub, mod, or voice page, but is hidden on the arpeggiator page, so switch to one of these. The filter works similar to the one we saw on the trip instrument, so we can get an on and off control, filter shape, cutoff frequency, resonance, distortion, amount, velocity, and cutoff key follow. The amplifier panel gives us the level for the volume, and velocity, which allows us to control the level based on the velocity. Then we have attack, decay, sustain, and release. Envelope 3 is used to control some of the modulation tools on the modulation page, and it gives us start level, attack time, decay time, sustain level, release time, end level, and velocity. Moving on to the MIDI tab, we can see our 16 slots again, but right now they're configured to accept 16 different MIDI channels. This can be adjusted to change the inputs on each of the slots. For example, we can set both slot 1 and slot 2 to accept MIDI channel 1. That would allow us to blend 2 or more different programs to be controlled from the same MIDI input, or use a MIDI instrument track in the project view and blend multiple different sounds together without having to duplicate the track and create multiple instances of HALion Sonic SE. In addition to the channel selection, we can adjust the number of notes that can be played at once with the polyphony option. The transpose option lets us transpose the MIDI input up or down before it goes to the slot instrument. The low key and high key sets the minimum and maximum notes that the instrument will play. If we switch to the velocity tab at the top, we can specify the minimum and maximum velocity, and the control tab lets us tell the program to ignore certain control inputs that may be sent to that slot, while allowing us to use it for others. The next page is for the mix controls. Here we can control each slot which has a program on it. We can turn it on or off, adjust the level, pan it, watch the level meter, or use effect slots with it. On the right side, we can set it to go through the main audio output on the instrument track or rack instrument, or set it to a different output which can be used to separate all our programs in the mix console for more editing controls. For the effects slot, we have 4 effects buses that we can send each slot to, and these are controlled from the effects page at the top. For effects, we have reverb, delay, EQ, filter, distortion, pitch shift, modulation, dynamics, spatial and panner effects, and legacy effects from previous versions of HALion. Each of these effects can be added into an effects slot, and if we want to remove them, we can just click the name and select no effect. We can also press the left button to turn them off. Clicking the E button brings up the editor for the effect, and all of them will have their own controls. To save our sound and preset when we're done, we can click on the preset selector at the very top of the screen using the triangle button and select Save Preset. Thanks for checking out this video on the HALion Sonic SE3 synthesizer and Cubase 12 Pro. If this video helped you out, don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon to get notified whenever a new video is released. You can also check the video description for links to our social media accounts to stay up to date on all our new content.